Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk about one of the gems in Milford, something that's been around, well, as long as I can remember, something that a lot of us have grown up using and really value, the Fino pool, Fino field pool. We'll have to get the official title. But why don't we start with introductions? Peter, kick us off.
Peter Filosa, pool manager. I've been associated with the pool in different aspects since 1966. I've been the pool manager since 1980.
Jim Asum. I've been with the Parks Department for the last 20 years plus, just about 21 years. And I've been the Park and Rec administrator for the past 2.5 years or so.
Paul Braza, Parks Commissioner, just overseeing this.
And you were involved with the pool before you had white beard.
Correct.
You know, Peter, why don't you tell us a little bit about the pool? Because too many of us just took it for granted. When we grew up, going to that pool was the highlight of the weekend and during the summer. And actually, you became what we called a big guy when you could swim all the way across that middle. We always thought it was infinitely deep. I guess it's not so infinite when you get older.
No, it isn't infinitely deep, no.
Tell us about the Fino pool and its history.
The history goes back to the beginning or late 50s, early 60s when they thought about building it. Back then it was a pool commission of 3 gentlemen, some very relative names in Milford. Dr. Muskilly was one of the names that I frequently remember because actually I worked under him. At that particular time when the pool opened, it was just a cement wall built out into Milford Pond, which makes it very unique. There is only one other situation like that actually not the United States, but in Massachusetts, and it's located in the town of Natick, and it's built out into a pond. Originally, the area had the pool had a sand bottom for many years, and some of you may have actually, maybe Mr. Correa may have used it when it had a sand bottom. Mr. Azza, Mr. Braza would have missed those days. Sometime after we were open, about 4 or 5 years, they decided for safety purposes to put in a cement bottom. And that occurred sometime in the early 60s. And at the same time, we went to filtration and chlorination. Before, the pool was basically filled with a lot of water came from the Milford Pond, but we've always, going forward, all of our water now comes from the Milford Water Department. We originally started doing massive swim lessons. We had a Rotary program back when that many people will remember. In the summertime, run by the Rotary Club. That took place for about 50 years. In fact, it just ended 2 years ago when because of the community use program and the number of other pools around, the need for swimming lessons at the town pool just became non-existent. So they ended the program. But back when it first started and ran for many years, we used to put through 1,500 kids in the summer for swimming lessons. I would say most of the people in my age group, which is around 70, would have come through the Milford pool for their swimming lessons. Now, most of the majority of the kids in town come through the Milford Community Program at the high school. And as I said, we discontinued the Rotary program. It's a tremendous facility. We average anywhere depending on weather, but if it's a good summer, we will average anywhere between 150, 200 people a day. For many years, we had no fence around it. Then we put up a fence, which enclosed the pool, and at the same time, excuse me, at the same time, we decided that it was time to charge a small fee. We charge a very, very small fee. It's $1 for a child to come in, It's $3 for a non-resident, for a resident, $4 for a non-resident. It's a heck of a deal. And as I said, we average between 150 to 200 people a day. We employ lifeguards. We have 8 lifeguards on duty. We have an assistant manager and myself as manager. We are open 7 days a week. We start approximately the last week of June, and we stop the week before school begins, and typically that would be about the 3rd week of August. And we are open from noontime until 6 o'clock in the evening. What we're talking about is the pool needs, at first we talked about renovation, but we've come to discover that the only way to truly make the facility what it should be and return it back to what I feel is a very important part of the town of Milford is to build a new pool. And interestingly, when we talked to an architect, he came up with the idea of just leaving the pool right where it is. So technically what's going to happen is the pool will get filled, the structure that's there right now will get filled in, and we will build a new pool inside the existing pool that's there. We are also going to add a splash pad. And when there will be a photo coming up of what it's going to look like. New restrooms, totally new filtration system. And also we have a plan in there to build a playground in the back area of the pool. We do have the bike path which goes past us. So Fino Field and the pool have always been a very popular area, and we hope to continue that going forward. And that's pretty much the history to where I am.
Now, I'm always curious. How did they build a pool in the middle of the pond?
Interesting. Consigli Construction. And for many years, they maintained it for us. But then after a while, they just grew too big to maintain the pool. So we changed companies. But what they did is they built a cofferdam out of steel pilings. They drove them in out into the pond area. And then they pumped the water out and poured concrete. And then the cofferdam still remains. If you were to walk out in the back of the old pool right now, you would see steel pilings driven into Milford Pond. And that's how the pool was built. The wall area currently out there is about 12 inches thick. And the concrete at the bottom of the pool is about 5 inches thick. So the structure there is very sound. It's just developing leaks, and a great loss of water is going on. With a great loss of water, a tremendous amount of expense is being wasted on water, chemicals. It is time to do something. So that's where I am.
Well, over the last decade, you've come about every 2 or 3 years asking for money to buy some bubble gum and Band-Aids and kind of plug all the holes.
Yes, we have.
And I mean, when you came in front of the FinCom and we said it was $300,000, that's a lot of money, but if we could spend another 300, it would probably be worth it to keep the pool going for 3 or 4 years. But is that no longer an option?
We are at the point where I would say, based on my knowledge of the situation, which is, I feel like, not bragging, but I feel is extensive, we could probably stretch out on this year. We didn't open last year, but I have gone down there and checked out the situation. It seems like even though we did not open, the mechanics seem to be in working shape. So reopening this year is going to take a little bit more effort cleaning it up, but not that much more effort. We should be able to stay open at least this year and next year. After that, we are just at a point where the main thing is we are wasting resources. We are wasting town money. When you put an initial fill of our pool is about 350,000 gallons, and we go through about 2 million gallons in the summer, which I'm not sure on cost, but I would say it would be somewhere around $19,000 worth of water, because being built into the pond, the water loss just goes into the pond. So it's not even noticeable, except every day we come in and we have 4 inches less water in the pool. So we basically start and fill it back up. And the next morning we come in and we do it again. Along with all that water going out, we have a tremendous loss of chemicals. And chemicals are not getting any cheaper. So the situation is that we are someplace where we either do a new facility or we just don't have a pool in Milford. And then my feeling is the pool is just a real part of the town. It is not like anything like the state pool. The state pool is a much smaller facility. And it just doesn't, to get an area like that today, where that pool is located down a Fino field with the large grove area and trees and things like that, I don't think you could find a site in Milford anyway. So I just feel as though the right thing for me as the pool manager, I would like to see a new pool. And
Well-
obviously I'm a taxpayer also, so I understand that it costs money, but I think that they've gotten their money's worth out of this particular facility based on the fact that it's over almost 60, it's 60 years old.
But now, Peter, we have a pool up in the Heights, the Casey pool.
Correct.
And I was one of the kids who, I lived next to that pool, and I would, back then you could get on your bike and nobody yelled at you, and bike down to Fino. So I know why I went down, but if somebody was to ask you, why do we need 2 pools in Milford, how would you answer?
Well, first of all, the pool at the Heights is a state pool, which means not that we restrict, because we do take non-residents. That is not a problem. But the state pool draws a lot more people because it's listed on a website and it's, you know, it's a state facility. First of all, there's not a lot of room up there. Last year was a clear example. We didn't open, but if we had been able to open, we would have been able to have a capacity that was much greater than them. They just don't have the square footage up there. There's no trees up there. If you were to look at our site, it's more like going to a lake situation where you have trees, we have picnic tables. We're much more family orientated, I believe, than the state pool. The state pool has a lot of young, we don't really cater to middle school and older kids. First of all, we're not deep enough, but the attraction isn't there. We cater more to families. We hope the new pool will be gradual entry. Currently, it's just a 6-inch depth at the lowest point. So we have parents who come down with their little children. They can be right on the edge. Their child can play in front of them, and they're only playing in 2 or 3 inches of water. I just think it's an amazing facility, and it's amazing for a town to have 2 pools. Actually, town of Milford is one of few towns in the state of Massachusetts who has 3 pools. We have an indoor pool, which is very unusual in Massachusetts. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing to me was always, well, there were a couple things. Number one with the trees. There was never a tree at the Casey pool.
no, there wasn't.
You can't hide from the sun. And in the summer, it wasn't pleasant.
No.
Fino pool, we could go down there, take a picnic basket, so you could take a picnic basket down there, relax under the trees, and it was cool.
Yes, you're right. I mean, we have always had the picnic situation going on. As I said, it really lends itself towards the family situations. And because of our size, over the last few years, we've attracted the Milford Community Youth Camp comes down. They bring 200 children. The state pool could never do that. We have a group that comes from Medway, a special needs group. They bring 90 children, one-on-one situation. The state pool could never accommodate that. The pool is used by the Milford Youth Center. Again, the state pool could not accommodate that situation. So our pool is used by many other people in the town of Milford. Birthday parties, like you said. When the new pool is there, I'm hoping that maybe we can get back to using the facility. We have limited cooking in the park, but that could be arranged with the right type of facilities put in the Grove area so that we could get back to that kind of situation. Right now, we just don't have the right system in place to handle that kind of situation.
And the other thing was the idea, and I don't know the exact number, but it was like 5 or 6 inches of water that you stepped into. So putting my daughters, my grandkids, I could sit on the edge of the pool with my legs in the pool, stay, relatively cool, and have them all of a foot in front of me and not worry.
Correct. And the new pool will be gradual entry. So you'll be able to walk into the pool. There will be no step down.
Oh,
So it's gradual entry, and the deepest part of the pool will only be 4.5 feet. It's going to be a tremendous family facility, as it has been in the past, but even better. We're putting some swim lanes out on the on the backside towards the pond, so we can encourage lap swimming. But it will be a separate area from where we would have the general recreational situation. We're going to put, hopefully, if the plan goes through, we'll have a splash pad, and the splash pad will deal with, there'll be no water there. So that's going to be going down to when a child can crawl. He can crawl around, have a good time. The other plan is, because we're going to put in this, hopefully, the splash pad in the facility, we're looking at possibly extending the length of our season. Maybe opening the splash pad as early as a Memorial Day, and then waiting until school gets out to open up the rest of the pool for the general public. So we're looking at trying to encompass what we want to build. We want to encompass a lot of different things. One of the other things that Jim's talked about is our new bathroom situation is going to be right along the bike path, and it's going to be so that the bathrooms will be accessible to people using the bike path. There'll be an entrance off of the bike path. So even when the pool is closed, they'll be able to use the bathrooms. And for security purposes, what we'll be able to do is to lock the bathrooms at night remotely. So there won't be any vandalism and so forth.
yeah, Jim, let me ask you, and Paul, you were around when we did Woodland. We were all excited that we had real bathrooms, not porta potty thingies. And all of a sudden they got closed because nobody could take care of them. How's this going to be different?
I think, again, I think the Parks Department will step up the game as long as we have, good bathrooms that we can, maintain. It's no different than Fino when kids are playing at Fino and high school now. It's no different. I think, if we have the proper facilities, we can maintain them. But I think the biggest thing is security, just like Peter said. I mean, we need to lock them down and, open them on set schedules. And that's just the way it has to be, because we know what the vandalism can happen.
So, Jim, you feel comfortable you'll be able to keep them open?
Yeah, and talking to the architect and the designer, there's actually, the concern was, what if someone goes in there after a certain time? We would schedule a time when the bathrooms would be locked, and it's actually an automatic locking system where we wouldn't have to have someone on site. We could, set the locking system to lock at 6 p.m. Or 7 p.m. and that would lock the facility. It wouldn't lock someone in it. If someone were in it, they could leave, but if it wouldn't allow anyone to enter. Right now, our facilities at Fino Field are, outdated. We've done upgrades, in the past few years, and same at Town Park. These bathroom facilities are used for any events that we have up there that are supervised. But other than that, we still use the porta-johns along parts of the trail. We use them at some of the ball fields where we don't have that option at Plains Park, at Rosenfeld. But this will, eliminate that for the Fino Field area where Fino Field bathrooms aren't accessible unless the park is open.
But now when you talk about bathrooms, you're talking in the ballpark, right?
Yes,
So that's only when there's a Legion game or a football game or something on that line.
so we'll be able to eliminate the porta johns in that area with these bathrooms having a multi-use.
Well, I mean, Paul, you've coached. Having a bathroom instead of having to throw kids in your car and drive them to the nearest McDonald's or somewhere, it's got to be a big plus.
It is a plus. I think, we're adding another bonus to our trail system if you think about it. We don't usually have that ability, and porta potties are good, but you have a little kid. You try to bring a little kid into a porta potty, it just does not work from a parent standpoint. So I think it's an added bonus.
Or even changing grandkids. Be nice to have a real room instead of trying to figure out what are you going to do.
In the car, right?
Well, again, it's always a riot for people who have just gotten the blessing of a grandchild, because the grandchild comes with a mother and a father. And I'll never forget when my daughter started teaching me how to change diapers. She was so worried I wouldn't know how to. Yeah, I remember looking at her saying, Lex, thank God you're teaching me, because we never changed diapers when you were growing up. We bought one when you were born, and I think we kept it for 3 years.
It's pretty true.
And the important part about this whole facility is, and this is the issue I've been pushing as much as I've talked about it, but the multi-use of the bathrooms, but also the playground that is planned for the backside. That's not going to be exclusively for the pool. That is going to be gated for pool patrons' use, but it also will have a other set of gates that will allow people along the trail to use it, people at Vadalato Field to use it, people that are at Fino to use it. So it won't be just for the pool. And then the old bathrooms on the backside and concession and storage that we have there, that building can remain, and we'll be able to use that for Vadalato Field. The bathrooms there, the concession there.
Let me interrupt you for a second.
Yep.
And call on our maestro. Brent, can you show us a picture of the layout so as Jim talks about it, people can get a better feeling for it? There you go.
Right. So as you're looking at the screen, the right side, the only white and black section, that's the old storage and bathroom area. So that there is what would still remain and would be able to use by Vadalato Field. That's on that back side of the parking lot. The yellow squares all the way to your left, that's the new entryway, which is the entryway now, but it will have the bathrooms and shower areas as you enter the facility, rather than having to go all the way to the opposite side. And then the yellow square in the middle will be the new filtration system that will basically go in the footprint of the existing one. So you can sort of see by the outline of the map, the gray side closest to the bottom is Milford Pond, and the immediate line that goes from those old bathrooms towards the new bathrooms and entryway, that's the footprint of the existing pool, which is just about 15,000 square feet. And that center section where the new pool will be going into will remain in the same footprint. And as you can see, it is smaller, and the splash pad is the circular, the oval section on the left towards the entryway. And that's about 12 to 1,300 square feet. But as Peter had talked about, we had 3 designs put in front of us with the designer, and this was the one that that between the commissioners, Peter, myself, and looking at it and saying, what are we catering here? We're catering to young kids and families, as Peter had stated. To give you an idea, Peter says weekly, I have the numbers from 2019, 4,900, kids that went to this pool, so that's our catering. So, some of the people that talked at one of our forums had mentioned, oh, why not a bigger pool? Why not make it the same size and bigger? Well, that's not what we're catering to. We're catering to these kids and families. The resident adults is over 2,000 people, adults, and then non-residents is just up to about 1,000. And the kids is the number that stood out, the 4,900 in 2019. That really stood out, and that's going to benefit these families for that, having that splash pad, and having a bigger family area where Peter had said that we can look into, doing different things with the space, whether it be, grilling or, just more picnic area.
Well, the thing I love the most is I see trees.
Yes.
When I think about the pool that I grew up in, yes, it was a big thing that you could swim across all the way to the piers. If you did that, you had made it. Of course, nobody ever told me it was only 6 foot deep in the middle.
Yeah.
At some point I could have stood up.
Yes, you could have.
I thought that thing was 100, 200 feet deep. It was something that, you'd swim out a little bit, then come back, swim out a little bit, then come back. And eventually you said, oh my God, I made it across. It was a rite of passage. Now I see the new pool and I see a nice blue area where I can take my grandkids. But I also see lanes where people can swim, which I think was a problem with the design of the old pool.
Correct.
Do you agree?
Yes. I believe that the final that indicates that there are 3 lanes there, or there might be 4. Again, the water depth will only be 4.5 feet. It'll be, so when we do, right now, we empty the pool for rest periods so that we can give the adults an opportunity to use the pool by themselves. But we also, with this situation, we'll be able to allow adults or even children to go out there and swim laps, and the younger kids will still have the area towards the front of the pool there, which will be, like I said, gradual entry, and then it gets deeper as you go out to where that little inlet that brings you out to where the lanes are. And again, though, the deepest part of the pool will only be 4.5 feet.
But Peter, you won't be throwing. When we were little kids, we always thought it was unfair that the grown-ups got time to go out there, and we had to sit on the side and watch them. Here, it looks like as a kid, I'll have my opportunity to stay in the shallow end or whatever you call that. But as an adult, if I want to swim, I can go into the lanes at the same time.
Absolutely. And the idea is we will probably, because of the size of the facility, it is smaller in square footage, but the way it's going to be set up, we will probably have to add a couple of staff members, maybe 3 lifeguards. But the idea is probably to go on a rotating situation with guards, which is typically done today, instead of having a rest period. So we would not, probably in the time that we are open, we would probably not shut down for a rest period. We would just rotate guards in and out. So adults, children, whatever, we could use the whole facility during the whole period of time that we're open.
I got to tell you, I love the idea of this design, because when my darling bride and I first got together, she was a swimmer. So she would try and get me to go out and do laps with her. I'd sit down in the corner of the pool and watch her and count the laps. So when she'd say, "You coming swimming?" I said, "I already did 4 laps. I watched you go back and forth." It seems like gives everybody a chance to do what they want.
Yes. In the old pool, the lap was a long swim. It would have been 200 feet. This pool will not be that long. But again, you don't need it that long. with the addition of the splash pad and providing an opportunity for the really younger child who probably will spend the majority of their time on the splash pad versus the next older child moving into the regular pool, and then the even older child or adult using the lane situation. So the idea behind the plan was to accommodate as many people as we possibly could. I know you always ask Al about trees. I just want to make it clear that there will be a couple of trees cut down. That's all. So,
Well, Peter, the greatest thing is you take your grandson or your granddaughter down there, and when they need to take a nap, I can't do it at Casey,
no.
unless I bring something to hold over them because the sun was just overwhelming for the little tykes. Here, I could throw a blanket under a tree and just relax or play, my grandson demands that we play board games.
Correct.
Forces me to play with him. It's such a hard thing to do. But here I got a perfect place to do it.
We've had many situations where we've just had people come just to use the grove. They don't even swim. Because out in the grove, there's so much space. We have children in the back of the grove. They're playing wiffle ball. We have a thought of not only that is putting in a sandbox, either in the playground area or probably in the pool area, so that the children can use a sandbox situation. We're trying to bring the pool, with this design, would bring the pool into the 21st century and would be there for a long time to come.
Talk to me about the people who come. One of the things that initially enticed me about the pool design was that you could have whole families come down. And we've got a wide variety of families in Milford, some who've done well, and I'm glad for it, but some who are just not doing as well as they'd like to. So, when you think about it, if I want to go spend a day with my family down somewhere, I could do it for what, $5, $6 and bring my own lunch?
Absolutely. And we have had that happen. We make all kinds of arrangements with the youth center because most of the children that go there might be socioeconomically come from a different situation. We have accommodated the youth center by not charging them anything. The Milford Park Department has stepped up and done that for a number of years.
God bless you, Mr. Rasm. That's Milford.
That is Milford. You are correct. We have a very diverse population. We have, the newest population that we have in town is the Ecuadorian population. And I've picked up a few Ecuadorian words, but thank God I've always had a couple of lifeguards who could translate for me. They're just coming from where they come from. They're amazed that you can come in there for $1 and have this kind of a facility. They're in awe because it just doesn't exist in their country. In actually a facility that doesn't exist anywhere else in Massachusetts. So
but
that I know of.
Think back when you think of Mr. Braza. I still can't call him Joe. Senor Braza, my father, the people who came, and the Ecuadorians, okay, they're the new Brazilians, who are the new Portuguese, who are the new Italians, who are the new Irish. Back when they came, they started out and none of us had a lot of money. This was a place where you could go down for almost nothing back then.
It was nothing.
Yeah. You had to buy yourself a lunch.
Yeah.
So, some pop six and some linguiça, and we were in heaven for the afternoon.
Very true. Very true.
Very true. Very true. And it continues today like that. Yes. Will there be a different pricing situation? Of course. It's only inevitable. It's a new facility. You're going to change the pricing, but we will always, always accommodate anyone who needs to get into the pool area. We have done that for a number of years. I doubt that our philosophy will change. Right, Mr. Rasm?
Correct.
Well, you think about it. that's something we can all feel proud of, Jim.
Absolutely.
You know, we didn't see the Parks Department coming to the FinCom saying we need $8.30 because we're giving away a couple free entries. My heart tells me that's Milford. We take care of our own. I don't care if you're Brazilian, Portuguese, Italian, Ecuadorian, it doesn't matter. If you bleed Milford red, then we take care of you.
And we're going to look forward to having a few more forums. And my thought was to bring the forum to the pool. So, in the time we are now, instead of going up to town hall where we went last time, we'll invite residents down to the pool area, and we'll spread out socially distanced in the grass area in the grove, and sort of give them a look at the pool as it is now, open, and what it can be. Basically, it's falling right in that same footprint, so it's not changing too much besides the layout of the pool itself. But that will give everyone sort of up close and personal with the facility, and if they're not familiar with it, they can sort of look at what we're talking about when we're discussing the upgrades and what's needed.
Well,
Yeah,
the
maybe
last
you'd be
call-
interested in broadcasting remotely from the pool. Put that bathing suit back on, and then you.
Yeah. I don't know about that, Peter.
I was going to say, Peter, do you see how rotund I am? Me in a bathing suit would chase people away. That would not be an attraction.
Okay.
But if you think about that last forum, it was pretty positive. I didn't hear any I mean, there's always going to be a question of can we afford it? Right?
True.
I mean,
Absolutely.
many
You would expect that. I mean,
and Peter, how many years you came before the FinCom? And we had two sides which said, why are we keeping Fino open? Logically, shut it down. Go to the KC pool. It's a lot cheaper. You have one pool. But there's a reason we watch our money, in my mind, in this town. Because when it comes down to the critical things that make Milford, like it would have been cheaper on Stacy School to knock it down and build a ugly glass building. But that was Milford. That's Milford granite. It's what we grew up in. So it's the same thing with Fino. When you think about it, we all grew up in Fino. And the new families coming to Milford, the new Milfordians, are going to have something to share with their kids and their grandkids that, in my mind, you don't get anywhere else. So I saw a lot of positive confirmation that this pool is something we want as part of Milford.
I think Jimmy commented at the last forum, the real questions was, why were we building a facility so small? There were several people who asked to build it bigger. And, once we explained what we were trying to do and in today's pool situation, you wouldn't build a pool that big. It just wouldn't be practical. And it's not necessary to do that. So that kind of answered their questions. But there were, as you said, and it wasn't really a negative. It happens in every situation when you're doing something of this nature or this size. People always want to know cost. I mean, and they should know cost. They should be asking that question. So.
Well, you segue into it. How much is this going to cost us?
I'll let Mr. Asm talk on that subject.
Well, yeah. Well, the plan that was put out in front, the design through the architect is upwards of about I believe it was at 3.2 million. It's been a little while since we've, discussed some of it, but, the architect was pretty confident that he could keep it in that price range. And the playground, when they did their design, it was explained to us by the architect that they sort of put that, and I think he spoke to you, Al, at the last forum, that they sort of put that extra pricing in, knowing that these projects take some time to go, get off the ground, to break the ground. And, we're still a ways away. We have a few forums that we're going to have prior to, I'm hoping for at least 2, maybe 3 forums, to get as many residents as possible to, view the project and hear what we're, trying to, get for the town. And, then October meeting, if, it goes through, then there's another whole side of it. The whole procurement side that we have to go through, make sure the funding's there and then move forward with it. And, there's the whole engineering side and all that still has to be addressed, to make sure that that's all, fine. So, we still have a ways to go. And, ideally it would be great if, we could turn around in October, the funds get approved, November, we get the architect or whoever may come in to do the job and they start then. Originally, when we were speaking to them, if they were able to get in those months, they would be able to get this, beginning work done that they would have to do. And, we wouldn't have to lose a season. But, that all depends on, how the plan moves forward.
And realistically, when you're talking an estimated 3.377 million, not that I remember the number, we should have discussions, and I really do welcome both sides, people who believe we should invest in it and people who believe we shouldn't, because that's where we're going to get. I mean, we did that on the football field. If you remember, that went back forth around. At the end of the day, everybody agreed that we should do it, and up came $4 million, and we did it. So here again, I think it's critical that we get, $3.3 million. My God, Peter, when we grew up, you could have bought Milford. They would have thrown in Hopedale.
I think Hopedale wants to come in, don't they? They don't have any money over there. So,
well, we have been blessed that, and I get picked on by saying we're so lucky that our department heads are Milfordians, either born and raised here or moved here. But you look at our department heads, they've made a commitment to this town and they squeeze. And by squeezing every year, when it comes down to things like the youth center, the senior center, we end up having the money. If anybody told me we'd be building a $60 million elementary school and not have to go and use profanity, words like debt exclusion or 2.5 override, I would have doubted it back then. But we did. And the town supported it. And look what we have.
As a resident taxpayer, I've been here a few years, like most of the people on the screen here. I don't know of a town around who has done quite as well as we have with spending our money and getting all the things. I have people come to town. I have a daughter that lives up in Princeton, and it's a very nice community. But when she comes down here, she's amazed because my grandchildren from Princeton, we go to the town pool, and she sees 2 turf fields. They don't even have 1 turf field in Princeton. It's like, people just don't believe everything that there is in a town of Milford size. And again, as you said, we don't do debt exclusions. We don't do overrides. We do it the right way. We manage our money the way it should be managed. And I think we've been lucky to have people in that position who have managed the town well.
Well, and again, I hear a lot of people say this is wrong with Milford, that's wrong. And I'll ask a simple question. Who do you want to trade with? Pick one town around us that you'd rather live in than Milford. I don't get many answers.
You probably don't.
Now, we've talked about operating costs because, every year we talk about, where you said you see the water coming in and nobody notices. Well, we do when we get the bill. And the chemicals, that's a dual-edged sword in my mind. One, I'm paying for it to use it, but then I'm pumping chemicals into Milford Pond, which can't be a good thing either.
Correct. It is not a good thing. No.
We just spent how much money dredging it and all the weeds, and we find that when you put phosphates into water, things grow.
It's true. It's
Talk to
true.
me about, we get this new pool. And yes, we get over the 3-point gulp $1 million. Now, how about operating costs compared to what we're spending now?
Staff-wise, there may be an increase in that operating cost. I would definitely see a decrease in chemical cost and a definite increase in water usage, which really right now is what's driving the fact that we need to do something. We are wasting a resource that's, and in Milford, we've struggled a few years with stage 3 and stage 4 situations with the water company. I mean, I realize I presume we're going to buy the water company, but that doesn't make it any different. The water company is the water company, and water is a resource that we shouldn't be wasting. We should be. So with the new pool, we will fill it. Yes, because of the loss should be because of the people getting out of the water and carrying water on their body and evaporation, which should be a lot less than we're doing today. Right now, I lose on a typical evening from the time we close until the next morning at 11 o'clock. We lose on the average about 3 inches of water, which
But what does that mean?
anywhere about 10,000 gallons
A day?
a day.
It's going to be about 2/3 less.
Yes.
2/3 less with the new pool because you won't be losing any water and you have a lot less pool to fill.
But when
So-
you say, Jim, when you say you're not going to lose water, evaporation is still evaporation. Where are
Right.
we
So
losing-
yeah, minimum water with the people getting out and, as Peter had stated, but nothing to the extreme it is now. Filling a 15,000 square foot, as Peter had said, you're talking 2 million gallons, as opposed to, the smaller, which is 57. I think it was somewhere in 56, 57 square footage.
But
So
where are
you
we losing the water? Are there cracks? Are there?
Yes, there are cracks in the pool. The seams, when the original pool was poured, it was poured in seams with, and the seams have worn away. And as I said, when you sit on a pond, yeah, the water just goes right into the pond. We keep the pond full all summer long. So the downstream people are really happy with us because the Charles River continues to flow thanks to the town of Milford.
But it's kind of a scary movie sometimes when you
It
start
is.
seeing. I'm coming up Silver Hill Road, and I see in February, drought conditions. Do not water your lawn.
Correct.
Now I sit there and say, wait a minute, who's watering their lawn in February?
Yep.
But the idea that people are already worried about drought conditions in February has to say something about losing 10,000 gallons a day.
Yeah. And we are fortunate over the years, the Milford Water Company, when we have even been in severe situations, the Milford Water Company has never shut us off. They've been good to us. And again, I think because a lot of people at the time, the Milford Water Company, a lot of people in the water company are associated with Milford, and they feel as though, you know what, for this short period of time, we can handle it, but we shouldn't continue to do that.
Now, Peter, when the pool is operating, so you fill it up with 9 gazillion gallons of water,
Yep.
you throw in how many chemical, what kind of gallon?
Oh, we go
Total-
through in the pool right now, we go through over almost 500 gallons of chlorine a week.
A week?
A week. And currently that's at about $3 a gallon.
Well, I'm more worried about 500 gallons if we're losing the water being pumped into the Milford Pond. That's
Well, I just to bring up a funny point. Before the pond was ever going to be dredged, many years, the Army Corps of Engineers spent many a day at the Fino Field pool, taking samples and so forth. And one of the things we asked them was, what's going to happen when you dredge the pond? Is that going to affect us? And my real dream was that they were going to say to us, they were going to say, by the way, we're going to pay for you to put a gutter system on this pool so you don't lose any water in. But no, the Army Corps of Engineers said that was, so what they ended up doing was grandfathering us. And in fact, we had a situation a couple of years ago where we had a state health inspection come through. They looked at the pond, and the woman from the state, the head lady, said, "Where does that water go in the pool?" And we said, "It goes into Milford Pond." And she goes, "Oh, you can't do that. That's illegal." So she sent a letter to us stating that we couldn't do it anymore, cease and desist. So we just had, we just sent a letter on to the Army Corps of Engineers, and the lady from the State Board of Health called me back some days later. She was totally in shock. She said, "That's okay. They can do it. They've been there forever." So that was, but again, we shouldn't be doing it.
Well, at least
And that's why,
minimizing it.
and that's why we're here, Al, to improve all this.
Remedy these situations.
So now we got the water, we dump in some chlorine.
Yep.
I assume there's some pretty powerful pumps circulating the water.
Yes. We're going to turn the water. State minimums right now is every 4.5 hours.
You pump that pool every 4.5 hours?
Turn it over.
Now, this sounds terrible, but when you put that many little kids in the pool, they're going to do things that we don't want them to do in the pool. How do you filter it and clean it? I mean, what kind of filters do you have?
Right now we use a diatomaceous earth filter. We turn over, as old as we are, we turn over every 6 hours at the town pool right now, and we're turning over about 350,000 gallons.
And Peter, share with them what Tom had said about the new filtration system. I think he shared that with you, as far as that.
Yeah, we're going to turn over. The water will be crystal clear. We have certain things that we have to maintain. The state code right now is a chlorine level of 1.0. We will easily maintain that for a lot less gallons of chlorine. I'm not even sure if we are going to end up with using liquid chlorine. There are a lot of new techniques out there. One of the things we talked about with the architect was not only using possibly going to a salt generation or using liquid chlorine and ultraviolet light. A lot of pools do that now. So that's like a secondary disinfection. So.
Okay, liquid UV light, I understand.
Yeah.
You hit it with something that's 190 nanometers or whatever, just fries everything that it
passes through, and the light goes right through the water.
And there's no waste, there's nothing. You just got to use electricity.
Yeah.
But what's the difference in chlorine? I mean,
chlorine is going to be substantially less. I would expect, and I'm not positive, just based on number of gallons and less area. So even with, as you spoke about evaporation, right now we have about, about 12,000 square feet of pool area. We're going to considerably cut that down, so evaporation will be less. I would anticipate we will use less than 200 gallons of chlorine a week.
Wow.
Considerable savings.
So now you're running the water through dirt. I mean, clean dirt, diatomaceous earth.
If we go to sand filters, it'll be clean dirt. You're right.
But it's still just sand.
Yeah.
Doesn't it get clogged and nasty?
And you backwash it, you clean it. It's all done automatically today. Everything we do now at the town pool, we do by hand.
So that alone.
I clean the filter. I'm still.
But it also should be noted too that each year we've been putting between $5,000 and $7,000 to resurface the pool and to keep it up to standards to open the pool, and that's something that's not going to have to be done yearly anymore. So that's another savings. You're going to save on electrical for the new pump system. You're going to save on that side. And as we've been talking about, the water obviously is going to be a huge savings.
But Jim, what I see is you're going to save a Milford tradition and save a very important part of Milford.
Right.
I sure hope so.
Because if we don't move, it sounds like if we don't move this fall, and nothing against you, Jim, your staff, your architects, but municipal wheels turn slow. So it's not
Right.
going to be something that you put in you approve this month and it's up and running 3 months later.
Right. And that's what, that's part of my job. Part of my job is to get the facts out and express that to the residents where the residents know. And, obviously working with the, finance department and, working to, see, is this something that's feasible? And if it is, then we're able to move forward, or if it goes to town meeting and it gets voted through, then we take the steps necessary to, get this, project done. So, that's why, I thought the forums would be important to get the information out there. The next forum will have some more information to share, just in, a bunch of this, saving aspects. And then as you spoke to, where we'll be there and you'll be able to see where the pool's going to go in the footprint of the existing pool that's been there for 62 plus years.
Yeah, and again, it sounds weird coming from somebody that's been the cheapskate for the longest time. To me, this is not about savings of money. This is about savings of traditions. And when you can have something that for $5 or $6, a family can enjoy an entire afternoon, that's something that I'd like to see the town of Milford not give up.
I agree with you.
Okay, Peter, you got a minute left. What are your final words?
My final words is I would encourage anybody who's watching, who's seen this program, I'd like them to speak out and let their feelings be known, positive or negative. If you see something you don't like, let us know. I mean, it's time that we move along with the project. I'd like to let, town meeting members know. I mean, if this is something you want to do, then we need to move on it. And again, I realize things take time. Again, so we will run the pool this summer. I have already had, I can't believe how many people know we're going to open this summer already. They're already asking me about, what, are we going to run the same way and all these things. So I think it's going to be a very important aspect. And I hope that we can keep the ball moving along. And as Jim said, if it takes a little bit longer to get it done, we will stay in the fight until we get it done.
Well, I certainly hope that the new generation of Brazos, and grandpa and grandmas can go down there and enjoy it, because I certainly look forward to this summer taking my two down there. So I'm glad you're opening, because that would have been a disappointment.
You're always welcome.
It's time now to say to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you for joining us. And guys, thanks for everything you do for us.
Thanks,
You're
Thank
Al.
you, Al.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Right.
Right.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just